General Ken Paxton filed a lawsuit last week to have the Migrant Protection Protocols reinstated. That's the Remain in Mexico policy that forced an immigrant to wait on the south side of the border until their court date. Well, joining us now to discuss the MPP and the effort to slowly remove it, we're joined by Reichlin-Melnick with the American Immigration Council. Aaron, thanks so much for being with me today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Well, first, give me your view of what's going on at the border right now. Is there a crisis?
I think that talking about whether or not we have a crisis at the border is less important than talking about whether or not we are effectively managing the challenges caused by the arrival of families and children to the border. We have had 7 years to come up with a solution for humanitarian processing since asylum seekers and unaccompanied children started arriving in 2013. But both the Obama administration and the Trump administration focused all of their efforts on deterring people from coming and not making sure that we don't have exactly what's happening now. Children and families backed up in crowded Border Patrol cells because our humanitarian protection system is fundamentally broken and needs to be fixed.
So what was your reaction 2 years ago when the MPP was first introduced?
The so-called Migrant Protection Protocols has been a humanitarian catastrophe from day one. Before the program even went into place, the American Immigration Council interviewed 500 people who had just come through Mexico, mothers who were being detained in Texas with their children. Nearly all of them said that they were threatened or harassed or otherwise the target of violence or criminal activity while in Mexico, and that the first time they had felt safe was after they had entered the United States. And what we had saw under the 2 years that MPP was in place was that it created a kidnapper's paradise for the cartels. Thousands of people were kidnapped and assaulted. Many more were subject to severe violence. And the program itself was effectively a sham, denying asylum to over 99% of all people put into the program.
Then do either the US or Mexico do anything to create the kind of space on the Mexican side of the border where people could wait safely?
The Trump administration kept saying that Mexico had promised to provide safety for those individuals in Mexico. But the reality is that almost none of that happened. In reality, thousands of people were stuck in squalid refugee camps within feet of the US borders. Other people were forced into homelessness on the streets or required to rent apartments for months at a time and begging for the kindness of strangers. And still more found themselves effectively turned away and unable to wait months or potentially years for court hearings because they simply could not afford it, or the danger was too high that they gave up their claims and decided it's better to die in my home country than it is to die here.
The Biden administration started a phased plan to get rid of the MPP. Are they doing the right thing?
The Biden administration is slowly letting people out of the Remain in Mexico program through the United States ports of entries. And they're doing this by first ensuring that people have active pending cases, and then secondly, by making sure that they test negative for COVID before they can enter the United States. This wind down of MPP is going slower than we would like, but so far more than 6,000 people have been taken out of MPP and allowed to pursue their asylum claims in the United States. And it's important to note that MPP had already been effectively suspended since March of 2020. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the Trump administration indefinitely suspended all MPP court hearings, meaning that some people who were promised that the US government would give them a hearing within 6 months have been waiting now more than a year and a half before they're being let into the United States just for a court hearing.
After the break, I'll ask Aaron about the fact that Texans say they support the MPP and what might happen if the Biden administration did away with it entirely. So stay with us.